For more on this story, we're pleased to be joined from Newsmax Washington by Ambassador Joseph DeTrani. He's the former senior advisor to the Director of National Intelligence, as well as a former Special Envoy for six-party talks with North Korea. Today, he's president of the Daniel Morgan Academy. Ambassador, we thank you very much for your time tonight here on Newsmax Prime. And Joe, if these reports are accurate, and I understand there's still a question of if they're in fact accurate, just how serious a security issue is this for us?
Good evening, JD. It's great being on the program. Look, this is a very major event. First of all, just having the fourth nuclear test by itself is a significant event. It's telling us that North Korea is pursuing with great vigor and whatever resources they can get their nuclear weapons program. And indeed, if this was a hydrogen test, and Kim Jong-un last month said North Korea has a hydrogen bomb. If this indeed was a hydrogen test, it's telling us that North Korea has nuclear capabilities that we did not expect them to have for at least another generation. So this is a very significant development.
Well, and as you mentioned that, I don't want to point a finger of blame. Goodness knows it's tough enough to estimate and gather intelligence. But if, in fact, North Korea has made this kind of stride, Joe, does this count as an intelligence failure on our part?
You know, JD, I think the issue here is, I think most people who watched North Korea knew they were pursuing with great vigor their nuclear weapons program. And eventually there would be another nuclear test. If they're moving towards miniaturization and mating that nuclear missile warhead to a delivery system, a missile, they would have to have another test. So I think most analysts watching North Korea said, if they persist with their nuclear weapons program, they will have another nuclear test. The key was getting them off that tack and getting them to sit down to negotiations to give up their nuclear weapons program and move towards denuclearization for the whole of the Korean Peninsula, and certainly North Korea, because the South does not have nuclear weapons. So yes, the answer here is, I don't say it was an intelligence failure, no. I think most analysts would say they were pursuing they would have another nuclear test. It was inevitable. I think the question is the hydrogen bomb. That is a new element in the equation. Last month when Kim Jong-un made this statement, I think most people dismissed it. Said this, and there was reason for that, because we didn't have any indications that they were moving in that direction. But I think now that North Korea had this test, said it was a hydrogen bomb, and indeed the government came out immediately afterwards and said this was a hydrogen bomb. And usually when the government comes out with a statement, they're usually accurate in what they say.
That's interesting, because so many of us have the impression of North Korea as a rogue nation, an old-style Stalinist communist regime that might engage in exaggeration. You've sat down face-to-face with the North Koreans in negotiations, part of those six-party talks. What is the psychology of dealing with North Korea? Do they want something now from the West?
JD, your points are right on. North Korea wants to be recognized as a nuclear weapons state. It goes way back to the beginning of negotiations starting in 1994 with the Agreed Framework. They have pursued a nuclear weapons capability for over 25 years, and they continue to pursue that. And now they are actually fabricating nuclear weapons. The assessment from 8 to 12, plutonium, a significant number of uranium-based nuclear weapons. What are they looking for? They want to be recognized as a nuclear weapon state, and they want to sit at the table and say, treat us as you treat other nuclear weapon states. And indeed, if we're talking about denuclearization, let's talk about arms control issues. And we all know this is not the way to go. North Korea should never be accepted, recognized as a nuclear weapon state. It's not a question of arms control. It's a question of denuclearization.
And that leads to another question, Joe, and it's this. Iran apparently moving forward with its own nuclear program, despite assurances from the current administration. How much cooperation has there been internationally between Iran and North Korea, in your opinion?
You know, Iran and North Korea have had and continue to have a very close working relationship. Not only a political relationship, but a military-to-military relationship. The missile technology that went from North Korea to Iran was extensive and continues. What we have not seen is cooperation in the nuclear arena. That's the one piece. But that element of cooperation between Iran and North Korea is very tight.
Ambassador Joseph DeTrani, a man who knows intelligence and diplomacy. Sir, we thank you very much for your time and your input on this very important story.
Thank you, J.D.